last I left off, I had defeated Suther.
The flames, never, truly.
And after defeating him and several of his minions, we have now made our way to Midgard, a land that is much greener than any other land that we have been to thus far. And this realm feels way more like home. Now here in Midgard, we did unlock several new mods, which are going to be very helpful moving forward. But ultimately, we're going to be running through Botania, and we're also going to run through a little bit of Create, and it even looks like Mystical Agriculture and even Draconic Evolution, ultimately leading us to Skoll and Hati. But one bad part about this realm, and the realms we've been to, we can't actually sleep in these realms. Our bed just doesn't work, but I think we might have the power or the ability to change the time of day at our demand. To do this, I'm going to need to find a sunflower plains, which it looks like there is one just this way. But I also have to be quite careful because there are dragons that I have seen lurking about. But at night, thankfully, they do seem to be sort of sleeping. This right here is a good example of a dragon's den, where thankfully a dragon is currently not here. Or at least I don't think it is. It seems like it's definitely not around. Also, on my way there, I'm going to take advantage of all of these archwood logs and try to gather up all of the individual types. I think there should be about 4 different sapling types, and we definitely need all of these logs, because this is also going to allow us to change the time of day. Also seeing so many cool things. Look at that in the ocean over here. And this right here is actually where one of the mini bosses resides. Yes, this is where the Leviathan hangs out. We'll come back to that later. I've now made it to the Sunflower Plains, and yes, sunflowers are going to be required for this next step. Now back to the area where I think I want to call home. I think this is going to be perfect. It's surrounded by water on all sides and is a quite pretty place. It's going to require a lot of work to make it look even better, but I think I'm up to the task. Now, as of right now, we are using a transmutation tablet. We have to lay it down, and I would actually prefer to upgrade this if we can. To do this, we're just going to need some dark matter, and we just unlocked this recipe by getting to Midgard. And so now we can craft a transmutation tablet, which means that we no longer have to keep placing this on the ground. Instead, we can just keep one in our inventory, and now we can open this up and place things in a whole lot more efficiently. So now for the time skipping part, we're going to need a blazing archwood log and also a sunflower, and this makes a tablet of sunrise, which also has some EMC, which is fairly nice. We place down a ritual brazier from ours, and we right click it and right click it one more time to activate it. And in doing so, we'll skip night, which is fantastic. And also, if it starts to rain, we can use a tablet of cloud shaping, which also has EMC, which allows us to skip weather events. So we do have the ability to control the time of day, which is really nice. And just something that is definitely going to be necessary, as I don't like playing in the dark typically, and being able to sleep, well, is just something we don't have the ability to do. Now, insomnia might be another problem that you encounter where phantoms start to spawn, but you can actually use a sleep charm, and a sleep charm will prevent the insomnia effect, preventing those phantoms from spawning. Now, I do want to set up some basic automation for this, where I can just fill up the dispenser, for example, with all of these tablets of sunrise, and then let this run. And there's a couple different scenarios I need to keep in mind. For example, weather, we should be able to detect an on state by using the supplementary's wind vane. If you use a comparator on this, this will emit a signal of 1 if it starts to rain, a signal of 2 if it's thunderstorms. And then we can also use a clock to determine the weather state or the time of day perfectly, compared to, well, a daylight sensor, which is a little bit different in how it functions. So this actually doesn't need to see the sky or anything like that. So we could use like a create analog lever to detect this, and then use that signal once it gets to the right time of day to send this a signal to the dispenser, which will then pulse and send the actual tablet. And then we'll have another redstone line that wraps around that just gives this a secondary redstone signal, and that will cause the actual ritual to trigger. This does mean I am going to have to dabble just a teensy bit into create, which means, yes, and andesite casing. That's because this redstone lever is incredibly powerful, by the way. I think it is just a stick though. Yep, andesite casing and a stick, analog lever, and this will let us define our specific redstone values just by tapping and increasing them here. Now, the way I have it planned to set all of this up, we have our clock that is going to detect the time of day, and then we need to put this in subtract mode, and we want to subtract 7 because at 8, when this has a power of 8, that is the perfect time for us to actually change the time of day. So this needs to be set to a power level of 7. I'm using the analog lever while this is in subtract mode, which won't send a signal of 1 until then. And then with that signal of 1, we want to boost it with a repeater. And then this repeater is going to trigger this first. This has a delay of maximum delay here. And then this is going to get triggered next, which should activate any tablets that are inside of here, only sending 1 at a time. Now for controlling the weather itself and making sure that rain is automatically cleared, well, the wind vane is going to be really good for this. So we're just going to run this, and this needs to detect nothing because whenever it receives its first 1 state, this 1 state is then going to be boosted, and this is going to get triggered first and then repeat that same thing going into this one. So yes, now whenever any weather state activates, this should automatically clear it. And now with it built, I can simply cut this out of its position here and we can place it somewhere out of our way because I do want to start building and start prepping up some land over here just to make sure everything works. I believe this did power on, but yet again is turned off. So there is a problem with actually powering this block here. I think we just need it to do a singular pulse instead of technically holding it in this state. So in this case, I think a pulse repeater will fix this problem. So that way it only sends that signal, and then potentially a pulse repeater on here, but make sure to set the delay. And yes, this worked perfect. So I have a pulse repeater from Create that is at 2 ticks, and then a pulse repeater here at 8 ticks. And that way this one pulses first, this one gets pulsed next, and I'm just going to repeat the same process over here. But this is ultimately how this should be set up. Now that I have the ability to control the weather and time of day, I think now we should start to control our storage a whole lot better. And up to this point, we've been using ours for our main storage, and we've been using integrated dynamics to access our storage cross-dimensionally. But I think it might be time for us to step into applied energistics. But before we do this, we are going to need some space to do this. And so here's what I have in mind. This centerpiece right here, there is going to be a stairwell that leads up into this area. This area is going to slowly be terraformed over time into some ruins. And I want to make this sort of ruined-esque with some terraces along the sides. So a stairwell that leads up, terraces upon each of those levels, I think would look really cool. And then a massive sort of arching structure. And inside of that arching structure is kind of where I want to put my AE system. My only problem is I just don't know how big I'm going to need the area to be, but roughly right here is the center point. So instead of just sort of waiting, I'm just going to place my first block and use something like the building gadget to be able to build stair steps. So I can actually take these stairs and go ahead and start applying them and sort of feeling out how tall I want this structure to be. I'm already starting to figure this out. So about 5 blocks up on the first section, and then we'll go 7 blocks wide, having some sort of walking area. And then I've got to lead the stairs up even higher. 7 might be able to do it here. Now, after going up 7 on this, I'm just going to only go out 5 before starting the new stairs. The next set of stairs, this is going to have to go at least 9. For that 9 set, I'll go 3 blocks forward here, and then this one is going to lead up 3, and this is going to be the final height. Now, it doesn't look good right now laid out, but once we define how big this upper platform is going to be, well, that's going to determine how big all of these other floors are going to be. After stepping back, I think the upper floor being 35 blocks long, this looks really good. And so I can now take something like the copy paste gadget, and we can just copy this section right here, and then, yeah, basically paste the entire thing over. This should be really easy for us to do. This corner intersecting, we just paste this in, and there we go. This makes this so easy to just basically get the entire design set up. The next terrace, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and block this out. This one is actually going to be 47 blocks long, and I'm going to repeat the same process. The process repeated. This, I think, is a little bit bigger than I was originally anticipating it to be, but I wanted this main platform to be where we actually have that structure going, and now I'm just laying out all of the grass blocks. So I'm utilizing some diamond sticks, which, by the way, I can just simply make more of, which is kind of nice because I am running through them quickly, and I'm just filling my entire inventory with grass blocks as I continue doing this, putting this in my offhand, and getting the grass blocks all the way up to this edge. With all of the grass laid in, I now want to start lining out the inner walls, which means I'm going to be using the building gadget and just essentially placing in stone along the center section. Now I'm starting to lay out the individual wall sections, and I'm using some simple mossy stone pillars, which is something that I'm able to chisel here by using the mason upgrade for sophisticated backpacks. And so yes, all of these individual things, I'm laying in like a basic foundation on this wall, so that way I can use the copy paste gadget and essentially just copy this one section and then mask it onto the other sides. I mean, this is pretty satisfying, pasting this entire thing in and just sort of watching it build up. Cool part about the actual copy paste gadget though, is if I'm missing something, for example, like these mossy brick stairs, all I've got to do is just put them in my backpack and it's going to replace them when I click again. Now, after doing the copy and paste section, this is looking pretty good. I mean, just for being a skeleton of a build, so far so good. What I want to do to add a bit more life to it though, is go through here and to sort of blend in some moss around the outer edges. There is going to be more bone meal stuff out on this outer section when I also create some paths. But for right now, I just want to get some of that mossy separation against the wall. And this is going to really start to bring this whole thing together. This whole thing is sort of fitting that old, Mayan temple sort of style. So far, so good with adding a little bit of grass and also growing some of the trees with the moss laying in. But now it's time for the big part. I first got to get this sort of layer in, which is going to be a mixture of stone. So the plan here is that I'm going to use stone bricks and regular stone and even a little bit of cobble. So I don't want a whole lot of cobble because I want to save that for a different sort of thing down the road. But this mixture is probably going to be pretty good. And I'm going to mix it with this construction stick. So you can set a keybind to open up this menu right here. And what we can do is set this to random, and it's going to shuffle through the items inside of our inventory. And then we can also set this to match any, and then change our restriction direction to left, right. And if we just have it set to left, right, now, whenever I go to extend, it should just only extend off the left and right like this. And it's going to randomize the blocks in our hotbar, which is going to give us this really nice random effect. After all of this has now been completed, I really want to get the major centerpiece in here before we start working with applied energistics. And so I want to build a towering arch structure that does look like it's going to be collapsed in sections, but at least the base outline I want to start working out. So as of right now, I am thinking we leave about this big of a gap to at least outline the entire thing. And so I'm going to have to sort of pillar up it first to figure out exactly the height. That way I can build out the base of the initial arch, and then I can start to figure out the other side and how thick and wide I want this. Now the arch size that I went with for this is 32 blocks high, I believe, or 33 blocks high from this section. So it's going to be the same with this also having a 23 block intersection. Yes, going from this side to this side. And I think this is going to be a pretty good size arch. Now I am going to have to take this section and go up even higher. And so this is going to mean the top radius is going to be different, as this entire circle, if you were to think about it like that, is going to be like over 30 something blocks. Let's see, how many is this? 39 blocks. So yes, this is going to have to extend quite a bit taller. You know what? It's not half bad. Now, this is just the defining outline, as now I've got to extrude it going this way and extrude it towards the back, and also create a little bit of an extrusion kind of going out of the front here. And starting to round this out, I think this is looking pretty darn good. And I think at this point, it is probably time for me to copy this section and paste it over onto this side. And now all I've got to do is just simply watch it come into place. This is perfect. Now, this is definitely a rough outline. The entire thing here is a rough outline and will be changing over time. The goal is to ultimately have like sections that are ripped out, and I would love to add some sort of lighting in those sections that are ripped out and sort of blend this together, maybe have it sort of spiral around, add some foliage, but that's something that I want to do at a later date. For now, it is in, which is perfect. And this whole structure is now in, which gives me tons of places to do certain setups and build certain things. Each of these little sections here, I could hollow out, and inside of this, I have tons of space. In the midst of me installing some really awesome chains from Bosses Arise, look who showed up and is offering me an entire beacon, by the way. So yeah, I'm definitely going to take that, and also some free honeycombs. Why not? Do you know what? After I'm done with you, I don't think I need them anymore. With this beautiful build now done, I think it is now time to dive into Applied Energistics and finally get our storage transferred over. Applied is going to take a lot of getting into, however, a lot of waiting for things, as we're going to have to sort of take all of our EMC items and still do some processing with them. The goal for right now is to just primarily get the main system in, and potentially some autocrafters. We'll have to see. The reason we're going to have to see is because AE is crafted a little bit differently in this pack. Before we really start getting into anything, let's just go ahead and set up some power. I'm going to use a lapidary dynamo, which is a really powerful way that you can generate a little bit of power early on. We do have the power mod currently, but I would like to use this for right now to kind of get started. It is going to be a little bit better when we get some upgrades. I got one of these via the quest, and the other 3 I went ahead and crafted. They do have an interesting crafting recipe, as you do have to do them through a smithing, and so you basically just need the base gear and you're upgrading the thing up. But with this, we can produce about 216 FE per tick, which is not bad considering this can run on prismarine. It can run on a lot of different things. It can run on diamonds. So there are certain things that it is better than others to put in here, as you're going to get more power out of the thing. But at the end of the day, I think if we just use amethyst, because of how cheap it is, this is going to be one of the best things we can put in here. And you can see the power rate is going to be the same. It's just going to generate more energy per consumed fuel. And to keep this topped up, we can just place a barrel for now and just keep this stocked. With the power set up, flux ducts is what I'm going to use to transfer power around. And we're going to need this because we are going to have to craft certain components from Applied Energistics, like these logic processors, with the component assembler. Now, there are other methods of doing this, but I think this is one that we've already gone through the tech tree for. So doing it this way is not going to be too difficult. We do need destabilized redstone, but also making the circuit also requires a component assembler, so I am going to have 2 separate ones. And this is just going to remove the whole hassle of the press system. Shouldn't be too bad either to do and or automate this system. So we have both of these. I'm also going to put a magma crucible on this side and make sure this whole thing is configured to output and that this is configured to input. And I think this is going to work out quite well. So redstone is going to go into here, and then we're going to do our other processing, like just making the plates in this one. And then getting started, I'm also going to need a pulverizer, and might as well have myself a furnace. Pulverizer set up, I mean, we are going to need to crush down our Certus crystals, and so we'll get that turned into Certus dust. Then we need to work on making Fluix crystals, and Fluix crystals is going to require us to submerge charged Certus. And an interesting way that we get charged Certus in this, which there are ways to automate it, but early on, we just basically toss it on the ground and shoot it with our spell, like our magic spell. So I'm going to toss it, shoot it, and we should get, there we go, charged Certus quartz. As wild as that is. It is kind of cool just striking this with lightning. With it charged, we can just start to dump everything into the water as per normal. One of my favorite operations, by the way, in Applied Energistics. It's just so satisfying watching all of this happen. But yes, we are going to need this for many different things. And something you may notice already is that mine looks a little bit different than yours might. And that's because I'm actually using a different resource pack for applied energistics. The resource pack I am using is called AE2 Blackout, and you can find it for the 1.20.1 version if you're playing this mod pack. And this basically makes AE2 fit a little bit better with all of these other tech mods by essentially putting it into dark mode, which makes it really nice looking. Now, some other things we're going to need to do. I definitely need to get gold in here, and let's see how fast this is with a reinforced integral component. I mean, it's not horrible. It's not crazy fast either. I wonder though, how fast is it with a resonant? It's a little bit better. I was also looking at some other generator sources for right now early on, and yeah, the generator from Draconic Evolution is another one that we can do. So long as we put it into overdrive mode, this is producing 300 RF per tick basically, or at least that's what it looks like. That's really nice. This process is going rather slow, at least getting some basic circuits, but everything else seems to be quite quick. For example, making all of the fluics, that was a pretty fast process. One major problem that we're going to have to solve in the future is the fact that this isn't regulatable by default. So we're going to have to find a way to regulate, because if I just put this in here, the operation just ceases to function. So yes, later on, we're going to have to make sure that it only sends one ingredient set at a time if we go to automate these processes. With all of our thermal machines, because we took that tech route, we just combined some destabilized redstone and the actual circuits, and this is going to bind together to make our first processors. After looking into everything that I'm going to need, I just realized we're also going to need a dwarven processor. And this is primarily for crafting up the crafting units. So we only really need about 4 of these blocks per crafting unit that we're going to be setting up, at least to get started. So it's not going to cost too many of them. The only unfortunate side of things is that this costs Dawnstone, but thankfully I did make a bit more extra Dawnstone. And I have about 22 ingots of it actually over here in Muspelheim. Now I almost forgot, why exactly are we getting into AE in the first place? Well, eventually we're going to be able to include applied energistics and also Project E together into one. This will make searching through this thing so much better and giving us access to a whole lot more automation potential opportunities in the future. I think now is the time. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a controller, and the controller is going to allow me to directly put power into our AE network. And this system is going to start pretty basic. I'm actually going to place it just right here on the floor for now. And I am going to run some flux ducts, I think, underground to the bottom of this. And like that, now we have power to anything we attach to this. And so some of the first things I want to place on here is our crafting terminal. This is just a regular terminal that we can craft things in. And then I also made a pattern encoding terminal and a a pattern access terminal, which is going to allow us to access any pattern providers that we put on the network. So this one, primarily crafting and access. This one is going to be for making recipes, and this is going to be for placing recipes into our providers. Now, after taking a look at the configs, we are definitely on infinite channels, so you don't even have to worry about network configuration. Honestly, you can use the base cables for as long as you want, but I will probably still simulate the whole idea just for decoration purposes. Now, I want to rush the auto crafting as quick as possible. So the way that I'm going to set this up is we're going to have a pattern provider that is going to be sort of crisscrossed like this. And I like to build this regular tower, but we're only going to have 8 pattern providers just to make sure that we maximize the amount of channels that we can technically send via a regular cable. So this is like a perfect example of it. And once we have this, you can see Network Apprentice, because technically whenever this isn't even connected to a controller, it can carry 8 channels on its own, which is something to kind of keep in mind. And you can actually take advantage of this later on, and you can use it inside of piping networks, like if you wanted a subnet, which is something that is interesting. But you do have to power this, and there is actually a tool that allows you to do that. Now, the thing that I need to do is take my cables and just simply run that into here. So this running into this now is powered up and ready to go. And you can see it says device online. And technically, we should be able to now see our storages listed right here. Here is our molecular assemblers now in our pattern terminal. Unfortunately, we can't do any auto crafts just yet, and that's because we don't have any co-processing units. So the way that I'm going to handle the co-processing units is by laying out a cable like this and a cable like this. And what we should be able to do is place in a crafting storage. So this is going to be like how many bytes you are requesting, and then up to three co-processing units that are going to be attached to it. And then I'm also going to extend that over here and place another one right behind it. And this is actually a separate CPU. However, it is connected, and this only uses one channel, by the way, each. So this is technically only using 2 channels on this line. Now, ultimately, I do want to be able to auto-craft. So on top of every single one of these that we're currently using, which isn't going to stay permanent, but is going to be useful for now, I want this to be set to in-out mode. So this will be set to in-out mode for right now. We can't do anything with it yet because we don't have our storage fully set up. But with in-out mode, this will send directly into here, and we can just use our regular cables just to link up to this, and we'll have this tapped in to all of these. Beautiful. Something I do want to note, however, if you do have 2 pattern providers next to each other, you probably want to flip these around so that way you have this arrow right here facing down. That is going to make sure that it doesn't accidentally push items into the adjacent pattern provider. Now, one thing you may note, about my AE system is currently the lack of disk drives. Now, I did add a disk drive, but currently I don't have any items in here, and I'm not going to put any items in here just yet. As of right now, we don't have any storage, so we need to go grab our storage, and we need to bring it here. Now, back in Helheim, I still want to be able to utilize this for now because we aren't going to have full wireless, but all I need to do is just pop on over here and break all of my, well, containers. Just don't EMC this thing, as that would be a really bad idea. You would definitely lose all of your items if you place this inside of your terminal. And now that I have it all back here, it's just going to go on the walls right here. I think I'm going to include some shelves potentially for this. But yes, I want to get this outlined on the wall, sort of stacking them a little bit. With the storages in place, we can use now a storage controller, and we shift right click while holding down the storage tool. And then we just make sure we click only one side of these chests, just like this, and then also this one. And with those all linked, we can now access all of our chests via this controller right here, this singular block. So the thing that I really want to do right now is just get our AE system to see it. So we can place a cable down, and this is where we can use an ME storage bus to attach to the bottom. And what I want is I want to set this, not to partition, let's actually remove that. I want to set this to a higher priority. So we click this, and I just for now just want to make sure that this is set to something like 10. It needs to be the higher number. Higher number goes first. And so anytime we send items in, it's going to try to send it here before it sends it anywhere else, which I think is a good idea for right now. But inside of here, we can now see all of our items, and we can sort this by number of items, much like I have been doing, and also sort it descending, which is very, very nice, and also extend our terminal a little bit more so we have some more room in here. But I think this looks rather nice, and all of our items are now stored inside. Now, I do eventually want to use AE and actually use its terminals wirelessly, but for now, I don't have access to that. So we can set up the exact same thing that we had before, where we use integrated dynamics. And so I'm just going to place the omnidirectional directly on the back here, and then we'll just relink our portable storage, and there we go. So now we have access to all of our items again. Yes, wirelessly and through any dimension. With this in place, it's now time for the fun part, where we can actually do auto crafting. And one of the first things that we need to craft is going to be a pattern. So I've made my first pattern, but we do want to automate the production of patterns. And so we'll do that with our pattern. And then we also need to make quartz. So we need to also have this quartz being produced to be able to make quartz glass. Now, this is all fine, and these are all regular crafts, but we're also going to need to produce that quartz. So for now, what I'm going to do is place this in my molecular assemblers. And now, whenever we open this up, we can see that we can request more patterns, which is very nice. And we just crafted those up just like that. But Certus Quartz Dust, this is going to be something that we need to go through a process. So over here, we are going to send this to our pulverizer, and technically we can send it one at a time. But I think what I'm going to do is use my middle mouse button and I am going to select more of them. I think I'm going to select 64, and then I also expect 64 back out. And so that's going to send a batch of 64, and it should process up all of those. But we need to put it inside of our pattern provider over here for our pulverizer. And inside of here, this one isn't as important as it only has one slot. But if we were doing these other machines, this is where we would set it to blocking mode. So it only allows one in at a time. But with this one, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. It's going to work just fine. But that is how we technically automate these. Now that's all just to make patterns, but I really would love to be able to make all of the different circuits, and I think that would be a good idea to get set up. And so each recipe needs to be defined here. So we just do 1-to-1, that is going to be just fine. So what I have is a processing pattern that is just a regular pattern that's going to be for the multi-servo press. And then these are going to need to be set up a little bit differently. We can't send multiple items at a time, so this is where we're going to say blocking mode, do not push crafting ingredients if the inventory already contains a current input. And so that's going to prevent this from filling up, and it should do one process at a time. If it doesn't do it, there is another way. We can set this to lock until primary crafting result is returned, which usually works for just about anything. So that is now basically done. We just have to send all of the ingredients also over here. And this is another setup that I explained earlier. We need to use a wrench to rotate the pattern provider so it doesn't accidentally place items into this barrel. Now later on, we'll probably use fluid crafting, but as of right now, we're not dealing with the fluid crafting itself. So what I'll do is actually hold down shift and just clear this item here, because we only want these two items going in, because I'm going to keep a passive supply of redstone flowing in. And again on this, the pattern providers and patterns that are being set up, we're just going to need to set this to blocking mode. So I guess it's time to test this out. So I have a logic processor here. We have 158 in stock. If I middle mouse click, we can go ahead and request more. And so this is going to start the operations. And it looks like, yes, it is already sent. You can see it's only allowing that amount in at a time, which is exactly what we want to see. And then it is returning it back into the pattern provider because we set this to auto input output in the same side. And so all of this is now ready to go, and I've just automated all of our circuits. That was pretty easy, right, Vet? With all of this AE2 power, I now have the ability to just auto-craft a lot of things, making, for example, flux linkage amplifiers a lot easier for me to craft, as I just need to send it into these machines and basically do the requests and build all of the patterns out. So this makes life so much easier. So many of those large crafting trees are going to be condensed now into a single button press. And my workflow is going to increase tremendously now. But this is merely the beginning of this setup, as we are soon going to have access. Well, technically we could do it now, but we do have access to getting our EMC directly inside of our AE system, allowing us to also include that in recipe crafts. Today has been such a wild episode. Not only did I build this massive structure that is going to come in handy very, very soon, but we also automated the time of day and also weather cycles, and also moved our storage and got auto crafting with applied energistics now set up. I think today was quite the journey. And so if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video, of course, a huge thumbs up. With all that, it's now time for me to thank the amazing supporter that made today's episode possible. And that huge thanks, well, that's going to go out to Demigora. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and just supporting my content in one of the best ways possible. Guys, I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching.